The spring rain pelted down on the dusty main street of Redemption Creek, Montana Territory in 1876 as Amelia Morgan stepped off the stagecoach, her worn leather boots sinking into the mud. The townsfolk who'd gathered to watch new arrivals scattered like startled birds when they caught sight of her face, whispers of, "There she is," and "the bad luck woman" trailing behind them. Amelia kept her chin high despite the weight of their stares, pressing down on her shoulders like the heavy carpet bag clutched in her gloved hand. Amelia had heard it all before. The 23-year-old woman with fiery auburn hair and emerald eyes that matched the rolling hills beyond the town had a reputation that preceded her. 3 failed marriages, 2 husbands dead, one who'd abandoned her after their homestead burned to the ground. A mine collapse that occurred the day after she visited. A well that dried up in the town she'd last settled in. Folks said disaster followed Amelia Morgan like vultures circling dying cattle. She stepped carefully through the mud, ignoring the way mothers pulled children closer and men tipped their hats down to avoid meeting her gaze. All she needed was a fresh start, far from the whispers. Redemption Creek was supposed to be that chance, a place where her cousin lived, the only family member who hadn't turned her away. As she made her way toward the boardwalk, a runaway horse came charging down the street, pulling a wagon with no driver. Amelia froze, the massive beast and wooden cart bearing down on her. In that suspended moment, she thought, so this is how it ends. But instead of impact, she felt strong arms wrap around her waist, pulling her roughly aside as the horse thundered past, mud spraying in its wake. Amelia found herself pressed against a solid chest, the scent of leather, horses, and prairie grass filling her senses. "You all right, madam?" The deep voice rumbled from the chest she was clutching. She looked up to see a man with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of the Montana sky, a piercing blue that seemed to cut right through her. His dark hair curled slightly beneath a worn Stetson, and a day's worth of stubble lined his strong jaw. "Yes," she managed, suddenly aware of her hands gripping the front of his denim shirt. She released him and stepped back. "Thank you, sir." "Tucker Yates," he said, tipping his hat. "And you are?" Before she could answer, a woman's voice called out from the boardwalk. "That's the Morgan woman, Amelia Morgan. They say she's cursed. Bad luck follows her like a shadow." Tucker Yates raised an eyebrow, but didn't look away from Amelia's face. "Is that right?" Amelia lifted her chin. "I should be going. My cousin is expecting me." Tucker glanced at the mud-spattered carpet bag she'd dropped. He bent to retrieve it, shaking off the worst of the muck before handing it back to her. "Who's your cousin?" "Sarah Miller. She runs the millinery shop," Tucker finished, nodding. "I know Sarah well. Good woman." A man stepped forward from the gathering crowd, his face twisted with suspicion. "You'd do well to keep your distance, Yates. Last town she was in, 3 men died in a mine collapse the day after she arrived." Tucker turned slowly to face the man, his expression unchanged, but something dangerous flickering in his eyes. "Seems to me, Henderson, that mines collapse because men like you cut corners on support beams to save a few dollars, not because a lady steps foot in town." A murmur rippled through the small crowd. Henderson's face reddened, and he stepped back. Tucker turned back to Amelia. "Miss Morgan, I'd be happy to escort you to Sarah's shop. It's just down the way." Amelia hesitated, studying his face for signs of mockery or ulterior motives, but found none. "Thank you, Mr. Yates, but I wouldn't want to burden you with my reputation." smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I don't put much stock in superstition, Miss Morgan, and I've had my share of bad luck without any help." He offered his arm. "Besides, I've always believed we make our own fortune in this life." Something in his steady gaze made Amelia accept his arm. As they walked down the muddy street, she could feel the stares of the townspeople. But for the first time in years, she didn't feel the need to hunch her shoulders against them. "What brings you to Redemption Creek?" Tucker asked as they navigated around a particularly deep puddle. "A fresh start," Amelia said. "Sarah wrote that this town was growing, that it needed someone who could cook and keep books." She didn't add that it was the 5th fresh start she'd attempted in 3 years. Tucker nodded. "She's right about that. Town's doubled in size since they found silver in the hills. The Lucky Strike Hotel needs a good cook. And Old Man Winters at the general store can barely tell a debit from a credit." Amelia felt a flicker of hope. "And you, Mr. Yates, what's your business in town?" "I run the Y Bar Y Ranch just outside town. Cattle mostly, though I've been breaking horses for the Army contract too." They reached the small shop with Miller's Millinery, painted in delicate gold letters on the window. Before Tucker could open the door, it swung wide, and a slender woman with sandy blonde hair rushed out. "Amelia!" Sarah Miller embraced her cousin, then held her at arm's length. "Let me look at you." "Oh, you're too thin. We'll fix that." She noticed Tucker and smiled. "Mr. Yates, thank you for escorting my cousin." Tucker tipped his hat. "My pleasure, Mrs. Miller." Sarah's eyes darted between them, a knowing smile playing on her lips. "Will you join us for tea?" "Another time, perhaps. I have business at the bank." He turned to Amelia, his eyes lingering on her face. "Welcome to Redemption Creek, Miss Morgan. I hope you find what you're looking for here." As he walked away, Sarah pulled Amelia into the shop, closing the door against the damp spring air. "Well," she said with a grin, "you've been in town less than an hour and already caught the attention of the most eligible bachelor in the county." Amelia shook her head. He was just being kind. Tucker Yates doesn't escort women around town, kind or not. Sarah helped Amelia remove her damp cloak. "He keeps to himself mostly. Runs that ranch of his like a man possessed. There's not a woman in 3 counties who hasn't tried to catch his eye." "Well, I'm not trying to catch anyone's eye," Amelia said firmly. "I just want a quiet life, without whispers following me wherever I go." Sarah's face softened. "The rumors have already reached us, I'm afraid. But Tucker standing up for you will help." "Standing up for me?" "Word travels fast in Redemption Creek. By nightfall, everyone will know that Tucker Yates himself said he doesn't believe in your so-called curse." She squeezed Amelia's hand. "And in these parts, Tucker's word carries weight." That night, as Amelia settled into the small room above Sarah's shop, she found herself thinking about the blue-eyed rancher who hadn't flinched at the mention of her reputation. It was a dangerous thought. She'd sworn off men after her 3rd husband left, but there was something about Tucker Yates that lingered in her mind like a melody that wouldn't fade. She pushed the thought away. She'd come to Redemption Creek for a fresh start, not to lose her heart to another man who would eventually be driven away by the cloud of misfortune that seemed to follow her. Better to focus on finding work and proving to these people that she wasn't the harbinger of doom they believed her to be. But as sleep claimed her, it was Tucker's voice that echoed in her mind. "I've always believed we make our own fortune in this life." The next morning dawned clear and bright, the spring sun burning away the previous day's rain. Amelia rose early, dressed in her most presentable blue calico dress, and headed to the Lucky Strike Hotel to inquire about the cook's position. The hotel owner, a portly man named Gilbert Fairchild, eyed her suspiciously when she introduced herself. "You're the Morgan woman," he said, twisting his mustache between thumb and forefinger. "I am," Amelia said, keeping her voice steady. "I understand you're in need of a cook. I've worked in hotels and restaurants from Denver to Bozeman." Fairchild shifted uncomfortably. "Well, yes, we did need a cook, but you're worried about my reputation," Amelia finished for him. "Mr. Fairchild, I can assure you that I'm an excellent cook. My buttermilk biscuits alone have brought men to their knees." A hint of interest flickered in the hotel owner's eyes. "Is that so?" "It is. And my apple pie won first prize at the Montana Territorial Fair 3 years running." Fairchild's resolve was visibly weakening. "We haven't had a decent pie in this establishment since Mrs. Gunderson left 6 months ago." "Give me one chance," Amelia said. "Let me cook for your dinner service tonight. If your customers aren't satisfied, you owe me nothing." Fairchild considered for a long moment, then nodded. "One chance, Miss Morgan, but if anything strange happens—" "Nothing will happen except that your patrons will enjoy the finest meal they've had in months," Amelia assured him. 4 hours later, Amelia was elbow-deep in flour and butter, preparing her famous flaky pie crust while simultaneously overseeing a pot of beef stew and a tray of biscuits in the hotel's busy kitchen. The previous cook, a young man named Jimmy who'd been doing his best to keep up, watched in awe as she moved efficiently between tasks. "Miss Morgan, I've never seen anything like it," Jimmy said, shaking his head as she rolled out the crust with practiced precision. "Those biscuits rose higher than the church steeple." Amelia smiled, grateful for the young man's admiration. "It's all in the touch, Jimmy. Not too heavy, not too light." As the dinner hour approached, the dining room filled with curious townspeople, many of whom had come as much to see the bad luck woman as to taste her cooking. Amelia ignored the stares and whispers, focusing instead on putting the finishing touches on her dishes. The bell above the hotel door jingled, and Amelia glanced up to see Tucker Yates stepping into the dining room, removing his hat as he surveyed the crowded space. His eyes found her through the kitchen doorway, and he nodded in greeting, a small smile playing at the corner of his mouth. Amelia felt a flutter in her chest and quickly turned her attention back to the apple pie she was removing from the oven, hoping the heat from the stove would explain the sudden flush in her cheeks. "Miss Morgan," Fairchild appeared in the kitchen doorway, his expression a mixture of surprise and delight. "The dining room is full, and I've had to turn people away. Word spread about your cooking." "I told you my biscuits were good," Amelia said with a small smile. "Good? They're miraculous. Judge Patterson just ordered a second helping, and he hasn't had seconds of anything since his doctor warned him about his heart." Fairchild straightened his vest. "I believe we should discuss terms of employment." By the end of the night, Amelia had secured not only the position as the hotel's head cook, but also a small apartment on the 3rd floor of the building, a significant step up from the cramped room above Sarah's shop. As she served the last slices of apple pie, she noticed Tucker Yates still seated at a corner table, nursing a cup of coffee. She approached his table, wiping her hands on her apron. "Did you enjoy your meal, Mr. Yates?" Tucker looked up, those striking blue eyes studying her face. "Best meal I've had since my mother passed, Miss Morgan. You've got a gift." Amelia felt that flutter again. "Thank you. I'm glad you approved." "More than approved." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Would you care to sit for a moment? You've been on your feet all night." Amelia glanced around the nearly empty dining room. Fairchild caught her eye and nodded his permission. She sank gratefully into the chair, suddenly aware of the ache in her feet and back. "Congratulations on the position," Tucker said. "I heard Fairchild offered you the job." News travels fast. It's a small town. Tucker's fingers drummed lightly on the table. "I also heard that Henderson and his wife have decided to leave town rather than eat food prepared by the bad luck woman." Amelia's heart sank. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Don't be. Henderson's a fool, and not a particularly nice one at that." Tucker leaned forward slightly. "But it did get me thinking. People around here are superstitious. It might take time for them to warm up to you." "I'm used to it," Amelia said, trying to keep the bitterness from her voice. "I'm sure you are. But I have a proposition that might help speed things along." At her raised eyebrow, Tucker continued. My ranch is hosting a barbecue next Sunday. The whole town comes out for it. It's something of a tradition my father started years ago. I'd like you to be my guest of honor." Amelia stared at him in disbelief. "Mr. Yates, while I appreciate the gesture, I'm not sure that's wise. If something were to happen—" "What could happen? A sudden thunderstorm? A stampede? Life is full of unexpected events, Miss Morgan. They happen whether you're present or not." "Try telling that to my 3 husbands," Amelia said before she could stop herself. Tucker didn't flinch. "I heard about your husbands. I also heard about the mine collapse and the dried-up well. Seems to me you've had more than your fair share of hardship. Some would say I brought it on myself. And some people believe that wearing a rabbit's foot will bring good luck," Tucker countered. "Doesn't make it true." Amelia studied him, trying to understand why this man she barely knew seemed so determined to defend her. "Why are you doing this, Mr. Yates?" Tucker's gaze was steady. "Because everyone deserves a fair chance, and you're not getting one. Because I've seen how people in this town can turn on someone based on nothing but rumor and fear." Something flickered in his eyes, something that suggested that he knew firsthand about such treatment. "And because I have a feeling about you, Miss Morgan." "A feeling?" A slow smile spread across his face. "That you might just be the best thing to happen to this town in a long while." He stood, placing his hat back on his head. "The barbecue starts at noon. I'll send a wagon for you." Before Amelia could respond, Tucker tipped his hat and strode out of the dining room, leaving her staring after him with a mixture of confusion and something that felt dangerously like hope. The days leading up to the barbecue were busy ones for Amelia. Word of her cooking prowess spread quickly through Redemption Creek, and the hotel dining room was filled to capacity each night. Fairchild was beside himself with delight as the Lucky Strike's profits soared. "I haven't seen business like this since the Silver Strike first hit," he told Amelia on Thursday night as she finished cleaning the kitchen. "Whatever bad luck you supposedly bring, it certainly hasn't affected my ledger book." Amelia smiled, though the constant mentions of her reputation still stung. "I'm glad to hear it, Mr. Fairchild. And I hear you'll be attending Tucker Yates's barbecue on Sunday," Fairchild added with a knowing look. "As guest of honor, no less." Amelia felt her cheeks warm. "News does travel fast in this town." "Like wildfire," Fairchild agreed. And speaking of the man himself, Amelia turned to see Tucker entering the dining room, scanning the space until his eyes landed on her. He'd clearly come straight from his ranch. His clothes were dusty, his face slightly sunburned, and a day's worth of stubble darkened his jaw. Despite his rough appearance, or perhaps because of it, Amelia felt that now familiar flutter in her chest. Miss Morgan, Tucker greeted, removing his hat as he approached. Mr. Fairchild. Mr. Yates, Fairchild said with a nod. What brings you to town so late? Army business, Tucker replied. Had to meet with the quartermaster about the horses. His eyes returned to Amelia. But I also wanted to confirm with Miss Morgan about Sunday's arrangements. I'll leave you two to talk, Fairchild said with a poorly concealed smile, retreating to his office. Once they were alone, Tucker seemed to relax slightly. I hope your week has been good. Very good, Amelia said. The dining room has been full every night. I'm not surprised. Your cooking is worth traveling for. Tucker ran a hand through his hair, mussing it further. I came to ask if you'd consider helping with the barbecue preparations. My ranch hands are good men, but they're not exactly known for their culinary skills. Amelia felt a spark of excitement at the thought of cooking for such a large gathering. I'd be happy to help, Mr. Yates. Tucker, he corrected gently. If we're going to be working side by side over a hot grill, I think we can dispense with formalities. Tucker, Amelia repeated, finding she liked the way his name felt on her tongue. And you should call me Amelia. A slow smile spread across his face. Amelia. He said it as if testing the sound of it, and she found she liked the way her name sounded in his deep voice even more than she liked saying his. I'll send a wagon for you early Sunday morning, if that's agreeable. Around 6? I'll be ready, she promised. Tucker hesitated, as if wanting to say more, then settled for a nod. Good night then, Amelia. Good night, Tucker. After he left, Amelia finished closing the kitchen, her mind already racing with ideas for the barbecue. She had attended such gatherings before, of course, but had never been the guest of honor, whatever that meant. And she'd certainly never been invited to help with the preparations by the host himself. As she climbed the stairs to her small apartment, she wondered if she was being foolish. Getting close to Tucker Yates or anyone in this town was risky. What if something happened at the barbecue? What if someone got hurt, or a fire broke out, or any of the other disasters that seemed to follow in her wake occurred? The tenuous acceptance she'd begun to build could vanish in an instant. Yet there was something about Tucker that made her want to take that risk. The way he looked at her without fear or suspicion, the way he spoke her name as if it were something precious, the way he seemed so certain that her reputation was nothing but superstition. For the first time in years, Amelia allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, her luck was finally changing. Sunday morning arrived with the first light of dawn, painting the Montana sky in shades of pink and gold. Amelia had barely slept, alternating between excitement and anxiety about the day ahead. She dressed carefully in her best day dress, a forest green cotton that brought out the color of her eyes, and twisted her auburn hair into a neat bun at the nape of her neck. At precisely 6 o'clock, a wagon pulled up in front of the hotel. To Amelia's surprise, it was Tucker himself at the rein, not a ranch hand as she'd expected. He jumped down from the seat with an easy grace that belied his tall frame and offered her his hand to help her up. "Good morning, Amelia," he said, his voice warm. "You look lovely." "Thank you," she replied, suddenly self-conscious under his admiring gaze. "I'm not sure how lovely I'll look after cooking over a fire pit all morning, but I appreciate the compliment." Tucker laughed, a rich sound that made her smile in response. "Trust me, you could be covered in soot and still be the prettiest woman at the barbecue." He climbed back onto the seat beside her, his thigh brushing against hers in the confined space. Amelia felt the contact, like a jolt of lightning, even through the layers of her skirts. Tucker seemed equally affected, clearing his throat as he took up the reins. The ride to the Y-Bar Y Ranch took nearly an hour, giving Amelia time to admire the landscape as it changed from the clustered buildings of town to open prairie, and finally to the rolling foothills where Tucker's ranch sprawled across hundreds of acres. A large white farmhouse stood on a gentle rise, surrounded by barns, corrals, and outbuildings. In a meadow nearby, several long tables had been set up, and men were already digging fire pits for the barbecue. "It's beautiful," Amelia breathed, taking in the vista of mountains beyond the ranch buildings. "My father picked this spot because of the view," Tucker said, pride evident in his voice. "Said a man should start and end his day looking at something that reminds him how small he is in the grand scheme of things." "Your father sounds like a wise man." Tucker's expression softened. "He was. He and my mother both died in a cholera outbreak 8 years ago. I've been running the ranch ever since." "I'm sorry," Amelia said softly, understanding all too well the pain of loss. Tucker nodded his acknowledgement of her sympathy. "What about your family? Besides Sarah, I mean." Amelia hesitated. Her family history wasn't something she usually shared, but something about Tucker's honest interest made her want to open up. "My parents died when I was 16. Influenza. I married my first husband soon after too young, looking back. He was killed in a hunting accident 6 months later. My second husband died of pneumonia after falling through ice on a fishing trip. My third," she trailed off, "left when your homestead burned down," Tucker finished. He didn't ask how he knew. They both understood how thoroughly her history had been dissected by gossip. "Yes. After that, my own brothers and sisters wouldn't have me in their homes. They believed the rumors that I was cursed. Only Sarah stood by me." Tucker's jaw tightened. "That's not right." "Perhaps they were just being cautious," Amelia said, though the rejection still hurt. "After all, there is a pattern." Tucker turned to look at her directly, his blue eyes intense. "Hunting accidents happen. Pneumonia kills thousands every winter. Fires destroy homes all the time. It's not a curse, Amelia. It's just life cruel and random sometimes, but not aimed at you specifically." His conviction was so strong, his gaze so direct, that Amelia found herself wanting to believe him. "I hope you're right." They reached the farmhouse, and Tucker brought the wagon to a stop. Several ranch hands approached, greeting Tucker with respect and eyeing Amelia with curious but not hostile glances. "Boys, this is Miss Amelia Morgan," Tucker announced. "She's the new cook at the Lucky Strike, and she's kindly agreed to help us make this barbecue one to remember." A chorus of greetings followed, and Amelia was struck by the absence of the usual whispers and fearful glances she'd come to expect. These men took their cue from Tucker, and if he treated her with respect, so would they. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity as Amelia directed the preparation of side dishes in the farmhouse kitchen, while Tucker and his men tended the fires for the meat. By 11 o'clock, the first wagons began arriving from town, families bringing blankets to spread on the grass and additional dishes to share. Amelia felt the stares as she emerged from the kitchen carrying a large bowl of potato salad to the serving tables. The whispers followed her, but they seemed less malicious than usual, more curious than fearful. She set down the bowl and turned to find herself face to face with a group of women, led by the banker's wife, Mrs. Whitfield. "Miss Morgan," Mrs. Whitfield said, her tone carefully neutral. "Mr. Fairchild tells us you're responsible for the recent improvement in the hotel's cuisine." Amelia nodded. "I've been cooking there for the past week, yes." "And now Tucker Yates has you helping with his barbecue," another woman remarked, her eyes speculative. He's never had a woman involved in the preparations before. Before Amelia could respond, Tucker appeared at her side, his presence solid and reassuring. "Ladies," he greeted, tipping his hat, "I see you've met Miss Morgan. We're fortunate to have her expertise today." Mrs. Whitfield's eyes darted between them, noting Tucker's protective stance. "Indeed. Well, Miss Morgan, I brought my famous corn pudding. Perhaps you could tell me where to put it." The tension eased, and Amelia directed the women to the serving tables. As they moved away, Tucker leaned close to her ear. "They'll come around," he murmured. "Just give them time." "Time for what? To see if disaster strikes while I'm here?" Amelia asked, only half joking. Tucker's hand found the small of her back, a brief, steadying touch. "Time to see you for who you really are, not what rumors have made you out to be." Before she could respond, he was called away to greet the mayor and his family. Amelia watched him go, struck again by his unwavering support. No one had defended her like this since before her first husband died, and she found herself both grateful and terrified by what it might mean. By noon, the meadow was filled with nearly the entire population of Redemption Creek. Children ran and played, men gathered around the fire pits discussing cattle prices and politics, and women spread blankets and unpacked picnic baskets. The atmosphere was festive, with the fiddler and banjo player providing lively music. Tucker found Amelia helping serve the food and pulled her aside. "You haven't eaten anything," he observed. "Come with me." He led her to a blanket spread beneath the shade of a large cottonwood tree, slightly removed from the main gathering. A plate heaped with barbecued beef, her potato salad, corn pudding, and fresh bread awaited her. "You arranged this?" she asked, touched by the thoughtfulness. "I thought you might appreciate a moment of quiet," Tucker said, gesturing for her to sit. "It's your first big gathering in town. That can be overwhelming even without complications." Amelia sank onto the blanket, suddenly aware of how tired her feet were. "Thank you." Tucker settled beside her, his own plate balanced on his knee. "No need to thank me. You've worked hard today." They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes, watching the festivities from their shaded vantage point. Amelia found herself relaxing, the knot of tension she'd carried between her shoulders since arriving in Redemption Creek finally beginning to ease. "It's going well, isn't it?" she ventured. "Nothing terrible has happened." Tucker smiled. "Did you expect it to?" "Honestly, yes." Amelia set her plate aside. "I've learned to expect the worst." "That's no way to live," Tucker said softly, his eyes on her face. "Always waiting for disaster." "It's the only way I've known how to survive," Amelia admitted. "If you're always prepared for the worst, it hurts less when it comes." Tucker was silent for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "My father used to say that expecting the worst is like planting cactus seeds and being surprised when you don't get roses." A laugh escaped Amelia, unexpected and genuine. "Your father really was wise." "He had his moments," Tucker agreed with a grin. He hesitated, then added, "Amelia, Whatever he was about to say was interrupted by a commotion near the fire pits. They both looked up to see a group of men gathered around someone on the ground. "What happened?" Amelia asked, her heart immediately racing with fear. Tucker was already on his feet. "Stay here, I'll find out." But Amelia couldn't stay put. She followed Tucker through the crowd to find young Jimmy, the hotel's assistant cook, writhing on the ground, his face contorted in pain. "What happened?" Tucker demanded, kneeling beside the boy. "Snake bite," one of the ranch hands said grimly. "Rattler got him when he went to gather more firewood." Amelia's blood ran cold. A snake bite at her first public gathering in town, it would confirm everyone's worst suspicions about her. Tucker was examining Jimmy's leg where 2 puncture wounds were clearly visible above his ankle. "We need to get the venom out and get him to Doc Preston, fast." Without hesitation, Tucker bent and sucked at the wound, spitting the venom onto the ground. He repeated the process several times, then tied a bandage tightly above the bite. "Harrison, get the buckboard ready," he ordered one of his men. "We need to get him to town now." As the men lifted Jimmy onto the wagon, whispers began to spread through the crowd. Amelia could hear the murmurs. It started. The bad luck. The Morgan woman. She backed away, feeling sick. This was exactly what she had feared. Now Tucker's gesture of inclusion would backfire, and the town's suspicions would be confirmed. She turned to flee, to get away from the accusing stares, but found her path blocked by Tucker himself. "Don't," he said quietly, gripping her shoulders. "Don't run." "You don't understand," Amelia whispered, tears threatening. "This is how it always starts. First a snake bite, then who knows what else. They'll blame me. They always do." Tucker's gaze was steady. "Rattlesnakes are common in these hills, Amelia. Jimmy was careless, wandering into the tall grass. It has nothing to do with you." "Try telling them that," she said, gesturing to the whispering crowd. Tucker's jaw set in a determined line. He turned to face the gathering, his voice ringing out across the meadow. "Listen to me," he called, commanding immediate attention. "I know what some of you are thinking. I can see it on your faces, but I won't have it. Not here, not on my land." The crowd fell silent, all eyes on Tucker. "Jimmy got bit because he went into the tall grass without watching his step. It happens every spring. It has nothing to do with Miss Morgan, or any nonsense about bad luck." Mrs. Whitfield stepped forward, her expression troubled. "But Mr. Yates, you must admit the timing is suspicious. Nothing like this has happened at your barbecues before." "Hasn't it?" Tucker challenged. 3 years ago, Tom Miller broke his arm falling off the corral fence. 5 years ago, we had a thunderstorm that washed out half the food." "Things happen, Mrs. Whitfield. They always have and they always will. The only difference is that now some of you want to blame someone for it." A murmur ran through the crowd. "I've known most of you all my life," Tucker continued. "I thought better of you than to see you turn on a newcomer based on nothing but superstition and gossip. Miss Morgan has done nothing but bring good to this town since she arrived. Ask Fairchild how his business has improved since she started cooking at the hotel." Fairchild, standing near the front of the crowd, nodded reluctantly. "It's true. Business has doubled. And today," Tucker went on, "she's worked since dawn to help make this gathering a success. Is this how we repay kindness in Redemption Creek, with suspicion and cruelty?" The crowd shifted uncomfortably, many people looking at their feet. "Now," Tucker said, his tone softening slightly, "Jimmy needs to get to town to see Doc Preston. The rest of us have a choice. We can let one unfortunate incident ruin a beautiful day, or we can go back to enjoying the food, the music, and each other's company." There was a moment of silence, and then Judge Patterson, the most respected man in town, stepped forward. "Mr. Yates is right," he announced. "We're behaving no better than superstitious children. Miss Morgan," he turned to Amelia, "on behalf of the reasonable citizens of Redemption Creek, I apologize for this nonsense. Your potato salad is excellent, by the way." A ripple of nervous laughter went through the crowd, breaking the tension. The fiddler struck up a lively tune, and gradually people began to disperse, returning to their previous activities with only occasional glances back at Amelia. Tucker turned to her, his eyes searching her face. "Are you all right?" Amelia nodded, not trusting herself to speak. No one had ever defended her so passionately, so publicly. The emotion clogging her throat threatened to spill over into tears. Tucker seemed to understand. He gently took her elbow. "Come with me. I want to show you something." He led her away from the gathering, up the gentle slope behind the farmhouse to a small rise crowned with a lone pine tree. From this vantage point, they could see the entire ranch spread out below them, the meadow dotted with colorful blankets and people, the mountains rising majestic in the distance. "This is my favorite spot on the ranch," Tucker said quietly. "When things get overwhelming, I come up here to remind myself of what matters." Amelia took a deep breath, letting the peaceful vista calm her racing heart. "It's beautiful." "It is." Tucker turned to face her directly. "Amelia, what I was trying to say before we were interrupted, I wanted you to know that I don't see you the way others do. From the moment I pulled you out of the path of that runaway horse, I felt connected to you somehow." Amelia's heart began to race again, but for an entirely different reason. "Tucker, let me finish," he said gently. "I know we barely know each other. I know you've been hurt, that you've lost more than anyone should have to lose. And I know you're afraid of getting close to anyone because you fear bringing them harm." He took her hands in his calloused fingers warm against her skin. "But Amelia, I don't believe in curses. I believe in taking chances. And I believe that you might be the best chance that's come my way in a very long time." Amelia felt dizzy with the rush of emotions his words evoked: hope, fear, longing, and something deeper that she wasn't yet ready to name. "What if they're right?" she whispered. "What if I am bad luck? I couldn't bear it if something happened to you because of me." Tucker's blue eyes were steady on hers. "Life comes with no guarantees, Amelia. Any one of us could be gone tomorrow. Snake bite, cholera, a horse throwing its rider. That's just the reality of our existence. But if we let fear keep us from living, from connecting with each other, then what's the point of the time we do have?" His words resonated deep within her, touching a truth she'd been running from for years. Since her parents' deaths, she'd been so focused on survival, on keeping her head down and her heart guarded, that she'd forgotten what it meant to truly live. "I'm not asking for promises," Tucker continued. "I'm just asking for a chance to know you better, to show you that maybe, just maybe, your luck is changing." Amelia looked into his earnest face and felt something within her shift, like a door, long locked, finally creaking open. "I'm afraid," she admitted, "not just of what might happen, but of hoping again. Hope has not been kind to me, Tucker." "Then let me be kind instead," he said softly. "One day at a time." He was so close now that she could feel his breath on her face, could see the individual lashes framing his remarkable eyes. When he leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, Amelia found herself meeting him halfway. The kiss was gentle, tentative, a question rather than a demand. His lips were warm against hers, his hand coming up to cradle her cheek with exquisite tenderness. Amelia felt something inside her melt. A frozen place she hadn't even realized existed until the warmth of his touch began to thaw it. When they separated, Tucker rested his forehead against hers. "See? No lightning strike, no earthquake, just us." A small laugh escaped her. "The day's not over yet," Tucker grinned, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "I'm willing to take my chances, Amelia Morgan." They rejoined the barbecue, walking down the hill hand in hand. If anyone noticed this development, they had the good sense not to comment directly, though Amelia caught several knowing glances exchanged between the women. As the afternoon wore on, Amelia found herself relaxing more, even engaging in conversation with some of the townspeople who approached her. Mrs. Whitfield, perhaps feeling guilty about her earlier comments, made a point of complimenting Amelia's cooking and inviting her to the next Ladies' Aid Society meeting. By the time the sun began to set, casting long golden rays across the meadow, most of the families had packed up and headed back to town. Tucker's ranch hands were cleaning up, and Amelia was helping fold the tablecloths when Sarah found her. "Well," her cousin said with a knowing smile, "it seems you've made quite an impression on our Mr. Yates." Amelia felt her cheeks flush. "It's not what you think." "Isn't it?" Sarah's eyes danced with amusement. "I saw you two coming down from the hill, and I saw the way he defended you to the whole town. He was just being kind." "Tucker Yates doesn't make public speeches for just anyone," Sarah said. "In fact, I don't think I've ever heard him say so many words at once in the 5 years I've known him." Amelia couldn't help the small smile that tugged at her lips. "He is different from anyone I've known." "He's a good man," Sarah said, her tone becoming serious. "One of the best. His parents raised him right before they passed, and he knows about being an outsider when he came back from fighting in the war. He was different, quieter. Some folks whispered that he'd brought back bad spirits from the battlefield. It was nonsense, of course, but it took time for him to find his place again." Amelia looked across the meadow to where Tucker was directing the dismantling of the fire pits, his tall figure outlined against the setting sun. "He didn't tell me he fought in the war. Missouri regiment. He was just a boy, really. Came back with a bullet in his shoulder and nightmares that took years to fade." Sarah squeezed Amelia's hand. "Maybe that's why he sees past the nonsense about you. He knows what it's like to be judged for things beyond your control." As if sensing their discussion, Tucker looked up and caught Amelia's eye. A slow smile spread across his face, and he excused himself from his men to walk toward her. "I should go help with the dishes," Sarah said quickly, giving Amelia a meaningful look before hurrying off toward the farmhouse. Tucker reached her side, his expression soft in the golden evening light. "I hope your cousin wasn't filling your head with stories about me." "Only good ones," Amelia assured him. Then they were mostly lies." His eyes crinkled with humor. "Are you tired? It's been a long day." "A little," Amelia admitted, "but a good kind of tired." Tucker nodded, understanding in his gaze. "I should get you back to town soon." "People will talk if I keep you here after dark." "People will talk regardless," Amelia said, surprising herself with her frankness. "They already are, I'm sure." "Let them," Tucker said with a shrug. "What matters is what's true, not what's rumored." He offered her his arm, and they walked slowly toward the farmhouse, the last rays of sunlight gilding the landscape around them. "Despite everything, it was a lovely day," Amelia said. "Thank you for inviting me." "Despite everything, it was the best barbecue we've had in years," Tucker replied, "because of you." He stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression serious now. "Amelia, I meant what I said earlier. I want a chance to know you better. Would you allow me to call on you properly? Perhaps take you to dinner at the hotel tomorrow evening?" The thought of being courted again after all she'd been through was terrifying. Yet the prospect of not seeing Tucker, of not exploring whatever this connection between them might become, was somehow even more frightening. "Yes," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'd like that." Tucker's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. "Good. That's good." As he drove her back to town in the twilight, The stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky above them, Amelia felt a cautious hope unfurling within her. Perhaps Tucker was right. Perhaps her luck was finally changing. Over the next few weeks, Tucker became a regular presence at the Lucky Strike Hotel. He took his evening meal there almost daily, always requesting a table near the kitchen door so he could exchange a few words with Amelia when she emerged to check on the dining room. On Sundays, when the hotel dining room was closed, he took her for long rides in the countryside around Redemption Creek, showing her his favorite spots: a hidden waterfall, a meadow carpeted with wildflowers, a cliff that offered views all the way to the distant mountains. Each time they parted, his goodbye grew more lingering, his kisses more tender. And each time, Amelia felt the walls around her heart crumbling a little more. The town's attitude toward her was changing too, albeit slowly. Her cooking continued to draw praise, and as weeks passed without disaster striking, the whispers about her curse began to fade. It helped that Tucker was respected in the community. His obvious courtship of Amelia lent her a legitimacy she wouldn't otherwise have had. By midsummer, Amelia felt more at home in Redemption Creek than she had anywhere since her parents' home. She had friends, real friends, not just people who tolerated her presence. Mrs. Whitfield had indeed welcomed her into the Ladies' Aid Society, and Amelia now spent Wednesday afternoons sewing with the women of the town, their initial wariness replaced by genuine camaraderie. But it was Tucker who had transformed her life most profoundly. His steadfast belief in her, his refusal to be swayed by superstition, his gentle patience as she slowly learned to trust again, all of it had healed something broken inside her. One warm August evening, they sat together on the hotel's back porch after the dinner service had ended. The sun was setting, painting the western sky in shades of pink and gold, and crickets were beginning their nightly chorus in the tall grass beyond the yard. "I received a letter from the army today," Tucker said, breaking a comfortable silence. Amelia turned to look at him. "About the horses?" "Yes. They want to double their order for next year. It's a good contract, the best I've had." "That's wonderful news," Amelia said warmly. "You deserve it. Your horses are the finest I've seen." Tucker smiled at her praise. "It means I'll need to expand the breeding program, build another barn, hire more hands." He hesitated. "It means the ranch will be more prosperous than it's ever been." Amelia sensed there was more to this conversation than just sharing good news. "I'm happy for you, Tucker, truly." He took her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. "Amelia, I've been thinking about the future, about what I want, what I hope for." Her heart began to race. They hadn't spoken explicitly about the future, though the deepening of their relationship over the past months had made it clear they were heading towards something permanent. "What do you hope for?" she asked softly. Tucker's blue eyes were intent on her face. "A life shared, a family, a partner to build something lasting with." He squeezed her hand. "I hope for you, Amelia, by my side every day." Tears pricked at her eyes. "Tucker, I love you," he said simply. "I think I've loved you since that first day in the rain, but I know your history. I know what you've lost. I understand if you're afraid to take that step again." Amelia swallowed hard against the emotion rising in her throat. "I'm afraid," she admitted. "Not of loving you, I already do, more than I thought possible. But what if—" "No what ifs," Tucker interrupted gently. "Remember what I said that first day at the barbecue? Life comes with no guarantees. But Amelia, in the month since you arrived, has anything truly terrible happened? Any disasters that could be attributed to your curse? Amelia thought back over the past months. There had been Jimmy's snake bite, yes, but he had recovered fully. There had been a small fire in the hotel kitchen, quickly extinguished with no real damage. A summer storm had damaged some crops, but no worse than in previous years. Normal life events, not catastrophes. No, she said slowly, nothing that couldn't be explained by ordinary bad luck. And there have been good things too, Tucker pointed out. The hotel's business has never been better. The town is growing. My ranch is prospering. He shifted to face her more directly. Amelia, I don't believe you're cursed. I believe you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. You're not bad luck, you're the best fortune I've ever known. The tears spilled over then, running down her cheeks. How can you be so sure? Tucker released her hand to gently wipe away her tears. Because love isn't about being sure. It's about having faith. Faith in each other. Faith that whatever comes, we'll face it together. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a delicate gold ring, set with a single pearl surrounded by tiny diamonds. This was my mother's, he said softly. My father gave it to her when they decided to build a life together in this wild country. I've kept it all these years, waiting for the right woman to wear it. He took a deep breath. Amelia Morgan, will you marry me? Will you make a home with me, share my life, and let me love you for all the days we're given? Amelia looked at the ring, at Tucker's earnest face, and felt the last of her resistance crumble. He was right, there were no guarantees in this life. All they had was now, and the choice to embrace love or let fear rule them. Yes, she whispered, and then more strongly, yes, Tucker, I will marry you. His face lit with joy as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. When he kissed her, Amelia felt as if her heart might burst with happiness. They were married on a crisp October day, with the aspen trees on the mountainsides turned to gold and the first hint of winter in the air. The entire town turned out for the ceremony, held in the small church on Main Street. Even Henderson and his wife, who had eventually returned to town, were present, their earlier suspicions apparently forgotten. Sarah, radiant in her role as matron of honor, wept openly as Amelia and Tucker exchanged their vows. Judge Patterson, who performed the ceremony, beamed at the couple as he pronounced them husband and wife. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced to the packed church, I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Tucker Yates. As Tucker kissed his bride, a cheer went up from the congregation. Amelia, her heart full to bursting, could scarcely believe that this was her life now loved, accepted, no longer feared or whispered about. The celebration afterward was held at the Y Ranch, with tables set up in the same meadow where the barbecue had taken place months earlier. Lanterns hung from tree branches, casting a warm glow over the gathering as night fell. The fiddler played dance tunes, and Amelia found herself being twirled from partner to partner as the townsfolk congratulated her. When she finally made her way back to Tucker's side, breathless from dancing, he pulled her close. Happy? He murmured against her hair. More than I ever thought possible, she replied honestly. I keep thinking I might wake up and find this was all a dream. Tucker's arm tightened around her waist. Not a dream. Our life. Starting now. As the celebration wound down and the last guests departed, Tucker led Amelia up to the farmhouse, their home now. He had spent the past month adding a new wing with a larger kitchen, knowing how much cooking meant to her. He'd also redecorated the master bedroom, replacing the heavy, dark furniture of his parents' era with lighter pieces that Amelia had admired in a catalog. At the threshold, he swept her into his arms, making her laugh with surprise. "What are you doing?" "Carrying my wife across the threshold," Tucker said, as if it were obvious. "It's tradition." "For good luck?" Amelia teased. Tucker's eyes grew serious as he set her gently on her feet inside the door. "We make our own luck, Amelia Yates. Together." The name, her new name, sent a thrill through her. She reached up to touch his face, marveling that this good, strong man was hers. "Together," she agreed. Later that night, lying in the circle of Tucker's arms, Amelia reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From the rain-soaked arrival in Redemption Creek, where she'd been greeted with suspicion and fear, to this loved, respected, part of a community and a marriage built on trust and understanding. "What are you thinking about?" Tucker asked, his voice drowsy, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "About how far I've come," Amelia said. "About how you changed everything for me." Tucker shifted to look into her eyes. "You changed everything for yourself, Amelia. You had the courage to keep going, to start fresh, even when the whole world seemed against you. I just had the good sense to see you for who you really are." Amelia smiled, touched by his words. "And who am I, Tucker Yates? You're the woman who taught me that taking a chance on love is always worth it," he said simply. "You're my wife, my partner, my heart." He kissed her softly. "And you're the best fortune I've ever known." In the years that followed, Amelia and Tucker built a life together that exceeded both their dreams. The Y-Bar-Y Ranch prospered, becoming one of the most successful operations in the territory. Amelia's cooking skills found a new outlet in the large farm kitchen, where she experimented with recipes that Tucker and the ranch hands eagerly sampled. A year after their wedding, Amelia gave birth to a daughter whom they named Sarah Elizabeth, after her cousin and Tucker's mother. 2 years later, a son joined the family, James Thomas, a sturdy boy with his father's blue eyes and his mother's determined spirit. The whispers about bad luck faded entirely, replaced by admiration for the thriving Yates family. Occasionally, when new people moved to the growing town of Redemption Creek, someone might mention the old rumors, only to be firmly corrected by the longtime residents. "Superstitious nonsense," Mrs. Whitfield would say dismissively. "Amelia Yates is the luckiest woman in the county, and we're lucky to have her." On their 5th wedding anniversary, Tucker surprised Amelia with a picnic on the hill with the lone pine tree, the spot where they had shared their first kiss. Their children played nearby, their laughter carrying on the autumn breeze. "Do you ever think about it?" Tucker asked as they watched little Sarah showing her brother how to make a crown from wildflowers. "The curse?" Amelia shook her head. "Not anymore. It seems like a lifetime ago, when I was a different person." Tucker took her hand, the gold band on his finger gleaming in the sunlight. "You know, I sometimes wonder if all those things that happen, the accidents, the losses, weren't actually the universe's way of leading you here to me." Amelia considered this. "You think my supposedly bad luck was actually good fortune in disguise?" "I think life rarely makes sense when we're in the middle of it," Tucker said thoughtfully. "It's only looking back that we see the pattern." Amelia leaned her head against his shoulder, watching their children play in the golden light of the fading day. "Well, if all those hardships led me here to this life with you, then I can't regret them." Tucker pressed a kiss to her temple. "You know what my father would say about that?" Amelia smiled. What? That sometimes what looks like the worst kind of luck turns out to be the best kind of fortune if you have the courage to keep going. As the sun began to set, painting the western sky in the same shades of pink and gold as on the day Tucker had proposed, Amelia reflected on how true those words had proven to be. From the darkest days of her life had come this abundance of joy, a loving husband, beautiful children, a community that had become family, and a future bright with promise. They called her bad luck once, but Tucker had seen the truth from the beginning. She wasn't cursed. She was blessed. And in finding each other, they had both discovered the best fortune either could have imagined.